Good afternoon, Primary 4 class. I am called Teacher Babidia Ivan. So today, our first lesson, we are going to look at our topic, which is written here, good behavior. Under good behavior, we are going to look at our subtopic, which is verbs. Now, the question is, what are verbs? What do we understand by the term verbs? Verbs are words that are used to describe an action, time, and state of being. I'm going to write it here so that we can be able to remember it. Verbs are words that are used to describe an action, time, and state of being. So that is what we mean when we talk about verbs. The words we use to describe an action, time, and state of being. So we are also going to look at the types of verbs. There are very many types of verbs, but today we are going to look at the two types of verbs, which are number one, we are going to look at the action verbs. Next, we are going to look at the helping verbs. So, dear children, those are the verbs, the types of verbs we are going to look at in today's lesson. But majorly, we are going to look at one type of verb, which is the action verbs. We also want to know what are the action verbs, examples, and furthermore. What comes into our mind when we talk about the action verbs? When we talk about the action verbs, we mean the things we do. They are the doing words. When we talk about the doing words, we mean what we do on a daily basis, what we do every day. Those are called the action verbs. Like you hear the word action. So that is what we mean by the action verbs. So when we talk about the action verbs, what should come into your mind should be the doing words, the actions we do day by day. So we are saying the action verbs are the doing words. For example, we can say eat. We can say cook. We can say play. We can say drink. All those are action verbs. They are the doing words. They are the actions we do. So after that, we are going to look at, under the action verbs, we have other forms of verbs. Number one, we have the regular verbs. So today we are going to see the regular verbs. Okay. When we talk about the regular verbs, we mean these are the kind of verbs that add D or ed to their base form in their past simple tense and the past participle tense. That is what we call the regular verbs. Remember, we also have the irregular verbs, but today we are majorly looking at the regular verbs. And we have said that these regular verbs, they add D or ed or IED in their past simple or past participle tense. We are saying that regular verbs are verbs that add D or ed or IED to their base form in their past simple tense and past participle. So, dear children, we should bear in mind that when we are changing verbs to their past simple tense and past participle tense, the regular verbs are D or ed or IED in that tense. Note, it is not that each and every verb adds ed or IED or D in their past tenses. But these are the only regular verbs that do that. And how do we know that this kind of verbs are D or ed or IED in their past tenses? We are also going to look at that. We are going to look at the forms of regular verbs. We are going to look at their tenses, and we see examples of verbs that add D or ed or IED to their past simple or past participle tense. So I want you to be very observant, and you see how we are going to change these words from their base form to their present simple tense to the past simple tense to the past participle tense. Please be very observant and see where we are making changes. And remember, in this first lesson, we are going to first see words or verbs that add D in their past simple tense and the past participle tense. And later, we are also going to look at those verbs that add ed in their past simple or past participle tense. Be very observant. Right now, leave alone the IED. It is going to come later. We are going to focus on D now. Words or verbs that add D to their base form in their past simple or past participle tense. So we said we are looking at forms of regular verbs. So we are going to have the verb, which we can also use as the base form. we are going to have the present participle. We are going to have the past simple. And lastly, we are going to have the past participle. So now here, children, we are going to look at how verbs change from their base form and add D to their past tenses. That is the past simple and the past participle. So we are going to produce examples of verbs that do add D in their past simple and the past participle tense. Now here we go. For example, we have the word move. In the word move, in its present participle, it will be moving. Whereby we remove E and add ing. In the past simple, it is going to become moved. Because remember, we say that we are looking for the regular verbs that add D to their past simple and past participle. The same in the past participle, it is going to stay as moved because we are simply adding D to the word. So that is the first example: move, moving, moved, moved. The second one, we can say use. In the present participle, it is going to become using. In the past simple, it is going to become used. Past participle, again, used. We need to know, how do we come to know that these words, what makes us to know that in these words, they are the regular verbs? We simply add D in their past tenses. What makes us to know this? What makes us to know this is that these words, they always end with the vowel letter, preceded by a consonant letter. What do I mean by the word preceded? Preceded means before. Before the vowel letter E, there is the consonant letter. For example, in the word move, it is M-O-V-E. But before the vowel letter which ends at last, there is the consonant letter preceding the vowel letter. So when you meet this word, this is the rule that governs you to change this word by adding D in the past simple and the past participle. I hope that is clear. The next word we are going to have is that promotes. Okay, so we are having the word promote here. Promote is also ending with vowel letter E, like I have explained to you. Before E, it is preceded by a consonant letter, which is T. Therefore, when we are changing it to its present participle tense, we are going to deny E and we put ing, and the word becomes promoting. In its past simple, like we say that if it is ending with vowel letter E, preceded by a consonant letter, it is going to become promoted. Just write the word promote and add D. Same applies to the past participle tense. It is also going to become promoted. So that is how far we can learn that regular verbs that end with vowel letter E preceded by a consonant letter, they only add D in the past simple and the past participle tense. So now, remember, we were looking at words, at verbs that end D with D. Now we are going to look at verbs that end with IED. You may ask yourself why I want to skip the ED here. The reason as why I want to skip the ED here, I want to bring it in the next lesson because we have verbs that double the last letters and add ED. So right now, we are going to study the IED. I hope we are together. This will be our next lesson.